Fires, they affect all of us, especially seniors. Seniors are the second hardest hit group of people as far as fire fatalities in the city of Milwaukee. And basically that's what this program is about, okay? Getting out and talking to you and getting the word out as far as fire safety, because you can help us out a great deal by being fire smart.
Being fire smart means knowing what should be done to prevent fires and what to do when they happen. The department says most fires start in the kitchen and from careless use of smoking materials. With seniors affected as seriously as they are, the fire department sponsors these ElderSafe programs to deal with not just fires, but medical emergencies and personal safety. This session took place at the Lincoln Court Public Housing Development, the kind of building that creates special problems for firefighters. But the people who live there should follow some basic rules that apply to everyone.
And what you want to do before you open that door to investigate, feel it with the back of your hand. Very, very important. Always feel a door before you open it. Sometimes you may have to stay in your apartment, and that's a scary thought for a lot of people. Wait a minute, there's a fire on the second floor, I'm on the 7th floor, I gotta stay in my apartment? Absolutely. Reason being, you become more endangered if you go out in the hallway that could possibly be filled with smoke and heat, and now we find you in the hallway passed out. People don't understand, it's not so much the flames that get you in fires, it's the smoke. If you were to have to evacuate this building, we don't want you ever to go back inside.
Lieutenant Washington talked about the importance of smoke detectors in the home, and he warned about improper use of space heaters.
A lot of people like to put them right next to their beds, and in the middle of the night you may kick your blanket off because you get so warm, and it falls on top of that space heater. Catches fire, woof, and it goes up very quickly, okay? Like I said, space heater needs space. 3 feet around, we don't want anything within 3 feet of it, and you're never supposed to leave it unattended.
What should seniors do if their clothes catch fire? The same thing children are taught to do.
Clothes catch fire. Pretty simple. Stop, drop, and roll. A lot of people forget that, and we understand that. It's a stressful situation. Your clothes just caught fire, you're gonna try and outrun it. You can't. We need you to cover your face, drop, and then roll. Okay? A lot of people tend to forget to cover their face. You want to protect your eyes, your nose, and your mouth and things like that from flames. Okay, it's very important. Even if you're in a wheelchair, confined to a wheelchair and things like the same thing, get out that wheelchair and roll around. A lot of you cook. Maybe some of you don't, but a lot of you tend to cook. If you have loose sleeves, which I don't see any in the crowd, which is great, you want to roll those sleeves up anytime you cook over a stove. If you were to sustain a burn, the best thing for a burn is cold water. Not that old remedy of butter, okay? Butter's out, cold water's in. When firefighters get burned, that's what they put on us, cold water. They've never run up to me and put 2 sticks of butter inside my face to cool me off, okay? Because what happens is when you put stuff like that on, it traps the heat.
Lincoln Court is in Alderwoman Suzanne Breyer's district, and she knows firsthand about the medical responses of the fire department.
We have a wonderful fire department here. And my dad never hesitated to call because his old saying was better safe than sorry. And I think that's what we have to think.
Your life is very important. You know, what happens in your life is very important. You should know what to do under certain circumstances.
It's very important to have education. We don't want any more people in the city of Milwaukee or anywhere else to die unnecessarily or be injured unnecessarily.
And firefighters say no matter what your age, you should never be reluctant to call for help.
I don't want to inconvenience anyone. I don't want to call anyone and tell them that I'm sick. I'll be okay in a couple of days. I just need the rest. Well, sometimes that persists, and it's gotten worse, and you didn't realize it because you were hesitant or embarrassed to call. So like I said, 911, matter of seconds, we'll be here for you. So it's very important. Never be embarrassed. It's our job. We get trained to do that.
In the late 1800s, all the city's sewers emptied directly into the Milwaukee River. The river quickly became an eyesore and a public health threat as the city grew. The natural flow of the river wasn't strong enough to keep the river clean. The city decided a big flush was the answer. That feat was accomplished in 1888 with the Milwaukee River Flushing Station, which at the time was right at the edge of Lake Michigan. It was the city's first step toward wastewater treatment.
Sometimes it's said that the solution to pollution is dilution, and this particular pump facility actually could change over the entire water in the Milwaukee River in 24 hours.
Inside this Romanesque revival structure, now owned by the Metropolitan Sewerage District, is a giant pump. A Milwaukee engineer came up with a unique design to flush the river with fresh water. The water enters from just across Lincoln Memorial Drive. It takes a 2,500-foot trip through a 12-foot diameter tunnel beneath East Kane Place. The water exits at a point just below the old North Avenue Dam north of downtown. Water began pouring into the Milwaukee River in September of 1888.
It's a national mechanical engineering landmark, and when the pump was constructed or fabricated, it was the largest pump of its kind in the world. And in fact, it is still sort of the guts of the pump are still the same pump that was installed in 1888. It was considered quite a folly on the part of the engineer who designed it. In fact, apparently one of the city council members from the city of Milwaukee said that they would drink every drop that the pump was able to pump, that it was going to be so little.
Critics were quickly turned into believers as the 450 horsepower pumps and 500 million gallons of water daily downstream.
Well, originally it was coal-fired. There was a big pier here where they unloaded coal, and there was a big coal house, and I think the smokestack was about 116 feet high, something like that, and now it's electrically powered.
The historic river flushing station will soon be taking on a new role. Altera Coffee Roasters won the bid to transfer the former boiler room into a lakefront cafe. The Milwaukee company plans to have the coffee shop open next spring.
There's just this huge available space. It made sense to have an amenity by the lakefront for the people who are driving by, the people who use the lakefront for recreational purposes. Altera is a company that they'll serve coffee, they'll serve sandwiches. It's not going to be any sort of a major commercial establishment, which we wouldn't want along the lakefront. But to stop by for a cup of coffee after tennis or while you're taking a walk on the lake seems like a nice thing to be able to do. We had a competitive proposal process, and we were very interested in Altera because of the proposal they made, which included some environmentally sensitive projects.
Plans call for coffee grounds to be landfilled in a community garden program, to use rainwater for sprinkling and sanitation, use lake water running through the building for geothermal heating and cooling, have a parking lot with a pervious surface that absorbs water. MMSD is planning a museum-like exhibit in the smaller pump room.
Well, one of the great things about this project is that we'll be able to use the pump room for education. We'll have some historical information on MMSD and on our system, and we'll also have some current information on how the deep tunnel works and how the sewerage system works.
The Milwaukee River Flushing Station isn't used very much these days, but it still serves the same purpose today as it did 112 years ago, used occasionally when modern-day pollution reaches certain levels. One operation hasn't been modernized. The valves that bring in lake water and send it out again are still operated manually. The pump is an example of an engineering ingenuity that has stood the test of time.
It's operating really as it was intended well over 100 years ago, and I think it's really pretty cool for the city to be able to see this and to be able to see a part of our history.
A coffee shop and a sewer museum may make an odd combination, but a similar museum in Vancouver is reported to get 50,000 visitors annually.
We think it's going to be a very much appreciated amenity by the people who use the lakefront.
The poster depicts the public park, which gave the neighborhood its name. The park is named for Norman and Lydia Clarke, a couple who moved here from Vermont in 1837. They bought 160 acres here, made plans for a subdivision, and reserved 2 acres in the center of their land for a public park. Clarke Square was named for its donors in 1890. Chavez Drive is the east boundary of Clarke Square, Layton Boulevard the west border. It runs from Greenfield Avenue on the south to Pierce Street and Mitchell Park on the north. A community activist known to most residents as Speedy moved to the neighborhood 43 years ago.
And like at that time, it was mainly Polish, Germans, Croatians, Serbians, and a few Latinos. Overall, that's what it was. My best friends I grew up with a bunch of Polish kids, Horbinski, Kowalkowski, Stanislawski, and I learned how to eat kiszka and sarnina, as well as the tacos and tamales, understand?
Speedy says Clarke Square has complex problems. Crime is an issue, so is blighted housing, but he hasn't given up on the neighborhood.
You do read a lot of bad raps about it, but that happens in a neighborhood. It's what you make of it and how you bond together with your neighbors.
These days, those neighbors are likely to be from many ethnic groups. 16th Street, now Chavez Drive, was and is the busiest commercial strip. The wide variety of stores shows that Clarke Square continues to be a melting pot.
The cultures have changed, the diverse groups that you have now, because Clarke Square now is the most diverse community in the city of Milwaukee. You have a large population of African Americans, Latinos, Euro-Americans, Asians, that's a big population coming in here, and you've got some Native Americans. It's a diverse neighborhood, but we're all learning to live together, and that's what it takes.
Early residents came to Clarke Square as industries developed in the Menominee Valley, including the Milwaukee Road, which arrived in 1880. Many industries located wherever they found room in the early days. Thousands walked to work from their homes, but it was not exclusively a working-class neighborhood. Many wealthy Southsiders built imposing homes along Layton and National Avenues. You may have seen this large brick wall along National Avenue between 17th and 18th and wondered about it. It dates back to an early prominent resident of Clarke Square, Bernard Liedersdorf, a German immigrant who had a large tobacco wholesaling business near downtown. He lived here on a 6-acre estate that included a small lake. The red brick wall that defined his front yard is all that remains. The estate was subdivided after his death in 1912. The Clarke Square Neighborhood Association takes an active role in the community, alerting police, health, and sanitation departments to problems, working to eliminate graffiti, and they're not afraid to confront absentee landlords with messy properties.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, lady. You better come in and we'll give you 3 days. You better rake and clean up, because Clarke Square is going to give you a gift, and we're going to see that you get a fine on your property tax. You will see it at Christmas. So thank you. 2 days later, she was out there raking, I'll tell you.
Lorraine has been a vocal activist for the 10-year-old association. Many of its volunteers work to help the needy and elderly in the Clarke Square neighborhood who may be hungry.
We get this about 3 times a week, and then we bag it smaller and hand it out to people in the area, along with the bread, and it really helps a lot, especially towards the end of the month when they don't have very much. It just feels good.
Where do you sit in a community that's going to give you bedding, where they're going to get candy in the evening for the little ones, and you're going to get salads, whatever we get in. This gives to the community. We sit on the porch and we just give it out. We give it out till evening. And we have to sit out there. And it's a lot of fun, And people, I'll tell you, are so gracious.
Cabbage, broccoli, celery, carrots, onions, bread.
Take as much as you'd like.
And Saturday, I had a guy walk up the porch. He said, "You remember me, Lorraine?" No. And he said, "I remember when you helped feed, we didn't have food."
The association works closely with crime prevention, police officers, helps youngsters who may be on probation or parole. It hosts parties, including a Christmas party, usually attended by Mayor John Norquist, who also lives in the neighborhood. Homeownership here is a priority topic for the association.
I think it should be more encouraged through here because once you have a homeowner, you've got a good neighborhood.
The prevention and elimination of blight is also a city concern. Several $100,000 in community block grant funds are helping homeowners with exterior rehabilitation in a targeted investment neighborhood.
And you can see the homes, you can tell the ones that have participated in the TIN program. And it's great. I mean, otherwise these people could not afford to do it. Then you'd have a bunch of shacks. Okay, so your own occupant, it's a shack. Who wants it? You understand? So this encourages young families to come in and to live in the Clarke Square. And I'm glad that the city decided to do that.
Businesses like the Mega Mall complex at 18th and National have helped the neighborhood's revitalization and economy.
Any kind of, food that for your culture, you can find it there. So, they're catering to the people, plus they give jobs to the people in the neighborhood, walk to work. See, they're encouraging people to stay here. And that's what it takes. Businesses, not only the people that buy homes, businesses, a two-way street.
As in other neighborhoods, an assortment of churches reflect the neighborhood's former and present ethnic diversity. By 1932, there were 10 churches in the neighborhood. Today, many offer bilingual congregations and services. Longfellow School, one of the oldest buildings in MPS, was built in 1886 to serve local youngsters, and the children are still important.
I don't care if you have hardly nothing. If it's clean and nice, kids can live in it and they start building. And we need to build these kids up in here.
Like other Milwaukee neighborhoods, Clarke Square has a lot to offer. Like others, there are people from a world of different backgrounds sharing the same blocks and hopes.
After all these years, of 43 years that I've lived in this neighborhood, now Clarke Square is a rainbow coalition, all cultures. And we're learning to live together. It's difficult. It is difficult. But overall, it's good. It's positive. And we have to make people aware that they have to stay here, not to give up. In order for a neighborhood to grow together, you must have people from each income level. And about 3 or 4 households in my neighborhood, right in my block, were sold from the older folks to young families growing up. So, and they're making a commitment of 20, 30 years to Clarke Square. And that's good to see. I mean, they see that it is a thriving community and it's working together.
Reducing noise from loud music and parties. Cleaning Milwaukee neighborhoods of ugly graffiti. Clearing Milwaukee neighborhoods of unsightly nuisance vehicles. Just some of the many duties of the Department of Neighborhood Services. Calls about these junk vehicles are among the 32,000 complaints DNS receives every year. The city has removed a record number of junk vehicles this year and in less time than in the past.
Well, we're concerned not only for the fact that vehicles that are in a bad condition are health and safety threats, but they also tend to devalue properties and neighborhood values. So we begin by ordering the property owner to either remove or repair the vehicle to a certain minimum condition. And we do that by conducting an inspection first off to make sure that the vehicle meets the criteria for a nuisance vehicle under the ordinance. And then what we do is, once we determine that it meets that criteria, we issue an order and mail that to the property owner. Using the VIN, issue a warning notice to the last registered vehicle owner. And then finally placard the car so anybody that has any interest in the vehicle at all knows that there's some action potentially going to be taken against this vehicle. It's a 72-hour order. We also give 72 hours for mailing. So effectively, within a week, that inspector is going to conduct a re-inspection to determine if the owner has complied, either the vehicle owner or the property owner have complied with that order. If they have, then we can okay the order, and if they have not, then we're going to take pictures of it and refer that vehicle for tow. Once that vehicle has been referred for tow, It's a short time until the tow truck comes out and gets it. Generally speaking, about a week and a half. And then that vehicle is generally speaking going to be taken to Miller Compressing and shredded. Any vehicle that's parked on the street, alley, or sidewalk that's in this condition falls under the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Works Parking Enforcement Division. We handle exclusively vehicles on private property and deal with those property owners directly. Within the last year, the council has changed the notification process to make it easier for the department to get rid of vehicles in a more timely manner. It used to take us about 90 days, given all the constraints we had on notification, and now we can get rid of those vehicles, generally speaking, in about 3 weeks, 2.5 to 3.5 weeks.
Graffiti in progress means a 911 call. Graffiti removal from private property and the reporting of gang and tagger graffiti can mean a call to the Department of Neighborhood Services. DNS can offer information on free materials, free technical advice on cleanup products and removal, and other information.
The Department of Neighborhood Services houses the anti-graffiti hotline, which is 286-8715. We receive about 4,000 calls to that hotline every year. And what we do is we take each complaint and we send a notice to the appropriate person to ask them to remove the graffiti. And we get great response. We get about 90% compliance from the businessmen in the community. And we also help people who need help or get paint. They can call us and we can supply them with paint through the Milwaukee Christian Center. If they're elderly or handicapped and they live in their single-family home, owner-occupied, we'll go out and we'll remove the graffiti at no charge. We have a great community that is definitely for zero tolerance, and that is making a big difference.
When it comes to public property, like a sidewalk, the Department of Public Works gets involved, often with a call from Neighborhood Services.
We'll get a call from our graffiti hotline, and we'll come out, and like we're doing this right here, we'll get, say, about 10 of these a week, but quite naturally they back up. We try to do a 24-hour deal on getting them done. Well, mostly we'll do city buildings, we'll do city bridges, we'll do stop signs, light poles. Like I say, it's quite extensive. It's a whole lot of work, which takes us year-round. We have 2 people on it year-round.
The Department of Neighborhood Services may no longer be called building inspection, but still does building inspections. Inspectors look for properties with health and safety-related violations. They'll want to see if garages meet setback and size requirements. Plumbing inspectors make sure the plumbing code is being followed. The city's electrical code requires checkups by DNS inspectors. The department safety checks over 3,000 elevators every year. It takes all complaints about animal bites. Rat and rodent control is its responsibility, so is removal of garbage and litter on private property. Noise can affect our quality of life, and again, DNS is involved.
We enforce noises from music, noises from loud stereos, and if we are there and we personal knowledge of it, we can issue a ticket on the spot. But primarily it's a order, a compliance period, and then a citation if there's just no compliance.
Many complaints of loud noise and noisy parties come from rental properties near UWM on the east side. Working with police, the city can put the costs of enforcing noise laws on the landlord.
The police ticket the tenant, he sends us a copy, we send out a notice of violation to the landlord saying take care of the problem, because if you don't, it's going to cost you money. If it happens again, nothing's done, then we send a bill to the landlord saying, well, now it costs you for 2 police visits, and it costs you for our time, which is going to be about $150 to them. So that's something new that just happened. We've only had thus far to go after and bill one person, so we think it's pretty much of a success.
The city's new development center now handles most of the permit issuing duties of the former building inspection department. Pick up a construction permit for a backyard or public swimming pool here, and you'll find DNS involved in their licensing and code enforcement.
There's all kinds of issues dealing with electrical hazards, with plumbing hazards, making sure that the hose bib is safeguarded with a backflow preventer. Plus the placement of the pool is critical. You don't want to put them under wires. If there's a deck attached, there's got to be safeguarding of the ladders. If it's an in-ground pool, then the whole yard must be fenced. The gates must be self-closing and self-latching. As far as the public pools, we are agents of the state of Wisconsin. We regulate all the public swimming places, whirlpools, wading pools, public swimming pools, dive pools, therapeutic pools, indoor and outdoor. We have about 190 to 200. We inspect them as they're being constructed, and after they're operational, we issue an operation permit, and we conduct routine periodic inspections.
Reducing illegal tire dumping in the city is another function of neighborhood services. You can find DNS inspectors at laundromats and at gas stations, where they'll look at everything but the pumps.
We go in and we do a top-to-bottom inspection for sanitation, the exterior portion of the building, for cleanliness. We also do a fire inspection. The laundromats, again, is a public nuisance issue. If a person wants to go into a facility, they want to make sure that the place is clean and sanitary, and that there's working restrooms, and that's basically what we do at those facilities.
Call 286-2268 with complaints or questions. As you've seen, the department is involved in virtually anything involving public health and safety in Milwaukee neighborhoods.